I want to move to the other school that's in the state of Indiana, which is definitively not a football school. And I think we can all say that about the Purdue Boilermakers. They lost to Penn State, and the final score was 81-70. But anybody that watched that game knows that was an ass kicking, man. Like Purdue, I think, was down by 27 at one point in the second half. They had 24 turnovers as a team. Braden Smith did not look like the All-American point guard that we were promised this season. Trey Kaufman-Renn had 7 turnovers and was productive, but he wasn't the same guy. And it was not, I guess the way that I would phrase it, and it was the kind of performance that I would expect from this Purdue team, knowing that they have limitations when it comes to creativity offensively and guys that can deal with the kind of ball pressure that you're going to get out of a Mike Rhodes defense. How concerned should we be about where Purdue is right now in this moment, given that they've basically lost to the same style of team twice now?
Yeah, I mean, like they've had, I think their biggest hole coming into this year was trying to get someone as a secondary ball handler next to Braden Smith. And who was that going to be? I think they have to learn from this. If you didn't learn from Marquette, which they clearly didn't, you got to learn from round 2. Because if you watch the Marquette game and watch the Penn State game through 34 minutes, it was the exact same thing. Exact same thing. I think they have to move C.J. Cox to a more prominent position in the rotation, whether that is using him as a combo to go back and forth between the 1 and the 2, getting Braden Smith off the ball some. I think that's where like Lance Jones came in and did such a great job last year of just giving Braden, 1, giving him some rest off the balls, 1. 2, now Braden Smith was going to be in more scoring roles coming off of scoring cuts within the offense. That's where they needed him yesterday. Because once he got the ball out of his hands, now there was a non-creator trying to create, or they got the ball to Trey Kaufman-Renn, who had to either create or make shots himself. I think he had 6 or 7 turnovers last night. It just did not look good. The only big positive from this is that there are no other teams like Penn State in the conference who can do that at that level. Even if they tried, that's not going to be their identity, and they're not going to do it as well. That's Marquette's identity. That's Penn State's identity. If they're a 4 seed and they get one of those types of teams as a 13, they may be in trouble. Not going to lie. Not going to lie. Or if they're in that 3-14 and that 14 is an MFer, done. Round 1, done deal. So they're going to have to figure it out. I'm not out on Purdue and all that stuff, but they need to find that secondary ball handler, and that secondary creator cannot be TKR. I think they just got to get CJ Cox a much more prominent role, lengthen his leash a bit, and just kind of let him rock out a bit for the next couple weeks or so.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point, because it's the initial point that I wanted to make was, I'm obviously not concerned about Purdue, but I am concerned about Purdue against these types of teams. So like when they've played these 2 true road games against these types of teams, they've looked like a middle of the road Big Ten team. I don't think they are that. I think they're still one of the top teams in the league, but I think thinking about the Marquette game, thinking about the Penn State game, every team in every game, you're focused on, okay, shot selection, taking care of the ball. That's always, top of mind for any team. But it's especially important when you play against these teams, and it's especially important when you are a team like Purdue playing against these teams, because Penn State came into this game forcing 18 turnovers a game. And to me, the way that you combat a team that turns you over at that rate is getting stops. You have to get stops. Mm-hmm. And you have to defend without fouling, and you have to finish and clear the glass. Get out in transition. Spread them out a little bit more. Don't let them get their matchups, right? All those things. When you aren't getting stops, they set their press. They set their half-court defense. And now you're at their mercy, man. Like Ace Baldwin's that good on the ball They're that good blowing up ball screens. They're that good with their rotations, with their length. And that's where I worry about Purdue is defensively. Because there's always obviously all the talk about the guardrail that Zach Edey was offensively. I think they miss him more defensively because that's a guy that blocked 85 shots last year, probably altered hundreds more, and probably deterred teams from driving into the paint hundreds of times more as well. So
and he ended possessions.
Yeah.
Like he ended possessions and defensive rebounds.
And there was less of an, that perimeter is more vulnerable this year, guarding the ball. Fletcher, Lawyer, Braden Smith, if you offense, defense, they probably lean more offense than they do defense. So you have to be able to guard the ball, cut off angles, rotate, be active, all those things. Purdue's a below the rim team, offensively and defensively. Trey Kaufman-Renn has one block shot this year. They're not stopping anybody, and no one really feels deterred when they're going to the rim against Purdue. So that's a big piece of it for me. Like Braden Smith, we can get into all this other stuff, but it starts defensively for this Purdue team because there's times against teams like that where they look outmatched athletically.
Well, they are. That's why they look it, because they are outmatched athletically. I want both of you guys to answer this, and you got 30 seconds each to be able to answer it. Then we got to get to break. We'll start with you, Ant. Is there room to criticize Matt Painter for? I understand what he wants to do in terms of bringing in freshmen and developing them, building their continuity, building their chemistry, building stuff from within, right? Is there room to criticize him for not going into the portal and basically getting another Lance Jones?
Go ahead, Ant.
Yes and no. Yes and no. He's had the best team in the league the last 3 years. He won the Big Ten the last 2 years. So he gets a lot of leeway. But saying that, you saw how Lance Jones took that backcourt to another level last year. And, I think he felt that Jakari and CJ could be that guy right away. In addition, with Braden Smith becoming, an upperclassman at this point and someone who could be an All-American, probably felt that it wasn't needed. And he wanted to focus on the future, knowing that he had Braden and Fletcher for just 2 more years. So I will give him that leeway because of how dominant Purdue has been over the last several years. But I really would have liked him to go out and get a legit starting off guard, guard, even someone to just come in the game who had a lot of experience.
Yeah, I won't add too much to that. I think he deserves a ton of leeway as well. He's earned that, I think, as a coach in this league, how he's sustained winning. And yeah, just like you need a secondary ball handler, goes back to my point as well. You need a guy like Lance Jones who's willing to take on one of the best defensive assignments as well and keep guys out of the paint. So surprising that he didn't go back to the well after how much success they had with it last year. But I think Matt Painter is, for me, he's pretty free from criticism at this point. They still have some really good wins this year.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. They lost a generational talent, a back-to-back National Player of the Year, and a guy that was as dominant as any college basketball player that I can remember seeing since I've been doing this, and I've been doing this for 15 years, right? And he's still got a team that's ranked in the top 10, and I think they're like 17th on KenPom right now. They're top 20 in all the metrics. They're a top 20 team in America, point blank period, after losing Zach Edey. We can't criticize Matt Painter as badly as I would like to be able to have that hot take.